Hey everybody, I hope you're with me. I'm just getting everything set up here. So I'm just trying to make sure I can read your comments and so that I can see who's joining me. I hope you guys are joining me today. So what I'm doing today is what I want to do is show you a little bit about using stencils in your crafting. So I recently attended a virtual album retreat, and I'm really excited because I learned a lot of techniques for your scrapbook pages that you can also use on your cards, and I really wanted to share some of this with you today. So what I had posted earlier was this layout, which I had so much fun making. And the main technique here is the stencil. This was kind of a tone-on-tone stencil look on this piece of paper. So what I wanted to do is share a little bit with you guys about using stencils. Now, if you're not familiar with them, stencils can be made from plastic film, made from a heavyweight cardstock, and they are great for adding some color, embellishment, etc. to your cards and your layouts. Now, how you can get stencils is you can purchase them. Close to My Heart has 3 packs of stencils right now pre-made that you can purchase, and I will include the links to these off of my after this Facebook Live on the comments on this. Hey Patty, hi Carol, glad you guys could join me. So you can purchase them, and you can also make your own. Hey Frida. So what I'm going to show you today is a little bit of how to work with them. So I have this one stencil that I've used in the past. This was just a bunch of punched stars that I did on a piece of heavyweight cardstock, and I've used this a few times. That's one way of doing a stencil. This is a stencil that I got with the album retreat package for what I just attended. So it's a plastic film. This was already pre-cut, and that's another thing to do. And then also, what I did is I just made one of my own today. It's a little hard to see this, but this is kind of a sunburst pattern. I cut this on my Cricut using stencil film. So I'll show you how I use this. And the nice thing about this, I love the Close to My Heart, tell Jay I said hi, Patty, art booking cartridge that we have with the Cricut, because it has so many backgrounds as part of their shape catalog that you can use these to create backgrounds, of course, using cardstock, but also they're great for cutting your own stencils. And you can make your own stencils. You can also punch images out of a piece of heavyweight cardstock or even the stencil film to use that. So what I recommend is, for basic tools for using stencils, is you want to have a good mat underneath your paper. This is the all-purpose mat from Close to My Heart. It has 2 sides to it, kind of a grippy side, which keeps it from, from whatever you put on it from moving around. But it also has this smooth side, which is actually heat resistant, which is fantastic. So this is something great for embossing on, and it wipes off very easily with a cloth, and you just roll it up and put it away. And I love that about it. I also like using some washi tape. Because if you're trying to stencil and you're trying to hold the piece down and stencil at the same, use the coloring at the same time, things could move around, and you really don't want that to happen. So I find washi tape works really well, and I'll show you in a bit how I'm going to use this to duplicate what I did on the layout on some cardstock I have. But also, so you can basically, there's going to be, I find that there's 3 different ways of coloring on your paper with a stencil. You can use daubers and inks, my little dauber finger. I always mark my daubers with the ink color that I've used on them and just store them in a bin. That way I know what color this is, and so when I go back to use it again, I'll show you that. Then you can also use a sponge. Now, I buy our sponges. Our sponges are typically, of course, round sponges. I cut them into 4 quarters. Hey Grace, how are you doing? Welcome. And what I do is then, once I've used it, I staple a little tab to the top of the sponge piece that I've used. It makes it great for holding it, but it also, I write the name of the ink color on it so that I then know what ink color it is. And again, like the daubers, I'm not going to get it confused. And then the other thing, and we've just started using these with Close to My Heart, is the Distress Inks by Ranger, and with this basically blending tool. So I'm going to show you how to work with each of these pieces. So, and another thing I love, and I'll show you how I use this to clean the stencils, especially the plastic ones, is our chamois, our stamp chamois. You know, you think it's good for stamps, but it's also great for wiping down your mat, wiping down your stencils. So first piece I am going to show you is how I did my tone on my layout. So what I did, so I've got my Scarlet cardstock. I'm just going to do, what I do with that is take a tiny bit of my washi tape, and I'm going to put it on each side. You could also use some repositional adhesive on the back of your cardstock. I am just going to do a tiny bit on the cardstock, and then that way my cardstock is not going to move. And I did it at an angle. And with a piece of stencil film like this that's been cut, especially a line, you're not going to want to do a circular motion. You are going to want to basically take and you're going to swipe across. So I've got my Scarlet cardstock, I've got my Scarlet ink, and my sponge. So I'm just going to get into the sponge, and then I'm just going to go across my cardstock. And you guys can see, it's a little hard to see, but it's going to give me the lines in that ink. So this is more of a tone on tone look. So all you have to do is just basically keep moving the stencil down across your cardstock until you've covered it. And I just usually use one line to line up the others. I've got overhead lights tonight, so I might not be completely in line, but just kind of give you guys an idea of this. And so I've got my lines across. It's a nice tone on tone look. It's a kind of a way of dressing up a piece of, you know, cardstock that might otherwise go onto your layout plain. I mean, of course, we have background stamps, which are wonderful, but this is another option for how to do that. So that's with sponging. And of course, now my stencil is dirty, but the stamp chamois does a great job at just wiping this away. And then of course I can clean off my background with that. I'm going to put that aside. And then the next one I'm going to show you is, I'm just going to grab some cardstock here, is with the daubers and my little star. This is another way of doing, you could use this on a card, you could use this on a layout, whatever you want. So daubers, I'm just going to go down on the pad, and daubers you can kind of swirl a bit to get a little bit of a darker color like that. And or you could basically can pounce. Really, it really depends on what kind of look you're going for. So that's really basically with that. And this, I've done this on other layouts where I've done a field of stars kind of behind some of my elements on my layout. That's another way. And that's with our Bluebell, which is our color of the year, which I'm loving the color. And then now I'm going to show you. So this is the Sunburst, and I know it's really hard to see, but once I start to play with this, I'm actually going to put this on the corner, and I am going to tape this down with my washi tape so that it stays in place. And I am going to be using the Distress inks for this. So the Distress Oxides are, I love these inks. And the nice thing about this is so you can get one pack of that has the handle and some of the pieces. And I know a lot of people, what they do is they will put a little sticky note or label where they're going to put this in as they save it. Some people will put a Velcro dot on the back of here and then just Velcro the disc, and I haven't done that yet just because I just got these, and because of the height of this, it just stays right in there and you don't even notice it. But it's a great way to keep your pad along with your ink. So I love these. These are so chalky and easy to use. So what I'm going to do with this is I am going to create kind of a sunburst technique. I'm not completely being truthful and in the lines, but you know how much, when you work with any of these inks and daubers and sponges, it's really how much pressure you put down gives you how much you know, ink is going to end up being on your paper. And I'm just going to do another swash of this. I have a couple extra handles with mine. Hey, Deborah. So I'm just going to go down, and these are the I've got the candied apple and the mustard seed distressed oxide inks here that I'm using. I'm not being super careful, but, and then I am going to switch over one more to the spiced marmalade. I love these colors. I'm always enjoying the Tim Holtz color names. One more, and then, because it's a little hard to see what this looks like. And you can pounce, you can drag, you can swirl. I mean, it really, I would suggest when you start playing around with sponging and daubing and the distress inks, play around with your pressure. What way works best for you? Is it a swirl technique? Is it a pounce technique? Or is it a swipe technique? So I'll just, so you can see what this looks like once it's up. I'm just going to take my tape off. I love the washi tape because it comes right off and doesn't stick to the paper, but kind of an idea. And I do love the fact that the Distress Oxides inks are great for blending together. So if it's not perfectly straight one, you know, color, it's, you know, it's okay. So, and again, with this, I'm going to take my stamp chamois and I'm going to just wipe off my stencil film, and it's nice and clean, and I can put it aside and use it on another day. But so this kind of gives you an idea of basically working with stencils. Create them, you can create them your own on the Cricut. If you have, you could even use the Cricut basic shapes and punch them out. What you want to make sure you do when you go to cut them is I would recommend that your stencil film not be any greater than like a 4mm, because that's kind of the max for, at least for my Cricut Explore Air. I would definitely, you know, you want to set your dial on your Cricut to custom, and you can type in the search box that shows up stencil, and there's usually typically two options. There's the Cricut, the stencil film, and then there's a stencil sheet that's like 4mm, and I would save that as a favorite. There's a little star you can check next to it when you do it, and this way you can create whatever kind of stencils you want. Okay. Frida, I will look up and see what the difference between the Distress inks and the Close to My Heart ink pads. I know Close to My Heart ink pads are pretty much dye inks. The Distress Oxides are a little bit more pigmented. This one is kind of a dye and pigment combination, but I'll get you a little bit more information on that. These are definitely really good for kind of blending together, but you can have fun with them just regularly. But like I've showed you here, so you can create your own stencils. We have stencil packs available with Close to My Heart. Each pack has 3 stencils in it. We have 3 packs right now, and you can use them with your inks and sponges, your inks and daubers, or things like these Distress Oxide inks with the blending tools. And this really can kind of open up and give you a real variation on adding some backgrounds to your pages or to your cards. And I just want to make sure I wrote myself some notes so that I would not, forget what I wanted to tell you. But I will answer any questions offline. I'm trying to keep an eye on the questions as I'm speaking with you. And I will definitely include links to the products that I've shown today in the comments on this Facebook Live video. And I really wanted to thank you guys for being with me today. And I hope that you enjoyed this. And thank you very much for joining me for my challenge of going live on Facebook. And I hope to do these more often and share more tips and tricks and product information with you. And thank you so much. And for those of you that are joining me tomorrow for my scrapbook with me, I will see you tomorrow. Have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye now.